Ia Cthulhu Fatagan. Ia Cthulhu Fatagan. Ia Cthulhu Fatagan. That is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Unnamed Horror with Hanu and Retro Kaiser. I'm Hanu, and that's Retro Kaiser.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And this is the H.P. Lovecraft podcast where I read an H.P. Lovecraft story, and Retro Kaiser makes sound effects and funny noises and observations and the occasional Google Dr. Googling.
Yes.
Yes. How have you been? Oh, immediately got a sound effect. Nice. You got a rattlesnake there. So how you been? Tell the listeners, how have you been?
Busy. A lot busier than what I would have thought. I've been doing a little bit of programming with the retro achievement stuff, and I've been busy with real life work, which I'm not going to dox myself on this episode with.
Yeah, me too. I also on the real life work, like this past month has been at my job also, people might know that I work at a school, has been very, very busy. So, and luckily my schedule is changing in about a week, so I'm looking forward to that because I've been looking forward to this legit. So so this is the H.P. Lovecraft podcast where we read an H.P. Lovecraft story, and today is going to be another two-parter. We are going to start with the Dunwich Horror, and we are going to try to get through the first half of the story. It's going to be another long one, just like the Herbert West one from last year that we did. This is one that we've been building up for. This is one of my all-time favorites, and I'm going to start with a correction from our previous podcast. It was a long time ago.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, I did put it in the video description, but on the second half of the Herbert West Reanimator story reading, there was one character name I kept misreading all through the damn story. And I didn't.
It wasn't Herbert, wasn't it?
No. I did, and it's extra super weird because it's in the text. It's constantly being mentioned here, but I want to wait. Yeah. So there was a character I kept calling Chapham Lee. That's not his name. It's Clapham Lee. Yeah. And Kaiser did not correct me, at all once, but that's because he doesn't have the book in front of his face. Yeah. So for me, it's extra embarrassing because they said his last, or it's written on the page multiple times, but for some reason I kept seeing that L as a H, and Chapman is a last name, so I didn't react to it. So I just kept calling him Chapham Lee all the way through the fucking story, and I was none the wiser. It was literally only once I was editing, and because I think I was doing something that I hadn't done in a while. I was actually following along the story in the book as I was editing it, and then I suddenly realized, oh my god, this is not the character's name. I'm saying it wrong. So so yeah, sorry. And also, this one is another minor one. I don't think anybody paid any attention to this one, but is also I called attention to once again Lovecraft's immense racism when I made a little call back to the Cool Air, and I accidentally said that it was the Italians that Lovecraft was giving a hard time, which is of course not what was going on. They were not Italians; they were fucking Latinos, like Spanish speakers. So, that was another one. I think that was in the first Herbert West. Because there was the frantic Italian woman in the story in part 3. So that's probably why I got confused that time. Yeah. And that was a long podcast too, so there's that. Okay. Okay, and Well, I'll be reading this again from an actual physical book, but I actually have a funny story about the book. It's not the same book.
Ooh.
It's not the same book that I've been reading the previous ones. We have one constant listener for this podcast that I get feedback from occasionally, and that's actually...
Wait. We got listeners?
Yeah, I know. I'm usually the one. I'm usually the only one who listens to these back to back because I genuinely just like listening to our nonsense here. And I'm that kind of person. I just like listening to. Well, I listen to I like listening to your voice when I'm about to go to bed. That sounded funny.
Okay, no, that's terrifying. I am not ASMR material, dude.
Oh yeah, the Gabriel Knight 3 Let's Play that we did. Like I like watching that usually in the evening when I'm trying to when I'm about to get ready to bed. And I also like listening to Aqualung's weekly videos. You know, he does the weekly videos these days. Yep. When I do this is gonna sound funny. When I do my push-ups, so I have a daily push-up routine. So I like to have it playing in the background. I just, some people need music to work out. I need Aqualung's voice. But yeah, so I'm usually the only one who kind of listens to these at any regularity. But we do have one regular listener who I hear from, and that's my brother-in-law, Veli-Matti.
Does he? Let me guess. He says stuff like, "Shut up, Kaiser! Oh God, why won't that Australian shut up?
No.
Oh, please, for the love of me, kill that Australian dude."
No. He enjoys listening to this. So my brother-in-law.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah. So my brother-in-law, is slightly dyslexic. So, but he likes to read. But because he's dyslexic, it is a bit problematic. So he does a lot of audiobooks. And
nice.
Yes, and he works as a practical nurse, so he likes to listen to this podcast while he's on his work route when he's going around all the customers. So he likes listening to these podcasts.
Nice, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, but apparently he's not always the most attentive because he got me a Christmas present, which was the complete works of H.P. Lovecraft, which I already have. Which is the one I keep using to read the stories in this podcast. So I don't. He told me that he misunderstood that I had like some collection, but I didn't have the complete collection. But I do. It's okay. And actually there was one podcast that I forgot. So the version that I've been using was actually published by Barnes and Noble, but
the book company.
No, you don't say. Yes, but the version that he got me for Christmas is published by Chartwell Books. Now, so this does have also, it's a very big book. It does have all of Lovecraft's writings.
How big is it?
It's actually a little bit smaller than the other one and it's in a completely different style. So the thing that this does not have that the Barnes and Noble version does, well, first of all, it doesn't have any of the unfinished stories because there's a couple of I think early versions of the Dream Quest of the Unknown Kadath and incomplete fragments of early versions of Lovecraft stories. Those are at the very end of the book, and this one also doesn't have the little history blurbs that tell you about the publishing of the original stories and things. But since he did get me this present, and I decided, well, we're gonna do an Unnamed Horror at some point. Hey, let's use the book. And you know what? I actually really like the paper quality of this one a little bit better because the Barnes & Noble one has this weird silvery finish. Like the sides of the pages.
Ooh.
Yeah, the sides of the pages are all silvery, but it doesn't feel very nice to the touch.
That's a shame.
Yeah, so it looks dope, don't get me wrong, but this one feels a lot nicer in my hand. It's still very heavy, so... And I'm still gonna have to look down to read, so there's that. So, but yes. So thank you, Veli-Matti, for the Christmas present. We are putting it to use now in this podcast, and like I said, we are going to have to probably split this story in half because it's a very long story.
And I hope my sound effects don't scare everyone surrounding you while listening to this podcast.
Well, he uses earphones, so yeah. so no.
I'm a very loud person.
Yeah. Also, yeah. Okay. Well, maybe I'll bring that up at the end of the podcast. But anyway, let's finally get on with the Dunwich Horror. And this is in like 10 parts. They're a lot shorter than the parts in Herbert West, but there's 10 of them. So we'll try to get all the way up to part number 5 and end it on that one. Okay.
Yes.
All right, but let's start now with the Dunwich Horror. When a traveler in north-central Massachusetts takes the wrong fork at the junction of the
Ouch!
Aylesbury Pike, just beyond Dean's Corners, he comes upon a lonely and curious country.
Hello.
Okay. The ground gets higher, and the briar-bordered stone walls press closer and closer against the ruts of the dusty, curving road. The trees of the frequent forest belts seem too large, and the wild weeds, brambles, and grasses attain a luxuriance. Oh, yeah, that was a kind of a funny looking word, but I think that's how you say it. A luxuriance not often found in settled regions. At the same time, the planted fields appear singularly few and barren, while the sparsely scattered houses wear a surprisingly uniform aspect of age, squalor, and dilapidation. Without knowing why, one hesitates to ask directions from the gnarled solitary figure spied now. And then on.
Ripper-snapper.
And then on crumbling doorsteps or on the sloping rock-strewn meadows.
Whee!
Those figures are so silent and furtive that one feels somehow confronted by forbidden things, with which it would be with which it would be better to have nothing to do. Oh boy. Yes, the innuendos have not gone. It's 2025. Some things never change. When a rise in the road. What, no,
He's
boy?
gone from the fork in the road to the tent in the road.
Tent. Oh boy. When a rise in the road brings the mountains in view above the deep woods, and the feeling of strange uneasiness is increased. The summits are too rounded and symmetrical to give a sense of comfort and naturalness.
Oh, look how round they are.
And sometimes the sky silhouettes with especial clearness the queer circles of tall stone pillars.
Oh, hello!
With which most of them are crowded. Love the word queer. The fact that it meant something different back then. Gorges and ravines of problematical depth intersect the way, and the crude wooden bridges always seem of dubious safety. Especially if the bridge goes boing. Where the road dips again, there are stretches of marshland that one instinctively dislikes.
Ugh.
And indeed almost fears at evening when unseen worms? I forgot this word was in here, so it took me by surprise. Whippoorwills chatter. And the fireflies come out in abnormal profusion to dance to the rackiest, creepily insistent rhythms of stridently piping bullfrogs. They had a horn section, apparently. The thin shining line of the Miskatonic supper has an oddly serpent-like suggestion as it winds close to the feet of the domed hills among which it rises. Good use of that rattle, yeah. As the hills draw nearer, one heeds their wooded sides more than their stone-crowned tops. Those sides loom up so darkly and precipitously that one wishes they would keep their distance, but there is no road by which to escape them.
Leave me alone. Ah.
Across a covered bridge, one sees a small village huddled between the stream and
Hut, 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 hut.
the huddled, yeah, and the vertical slope of Round Mountain. Round Mountain, by the way, capital R, capital M, so that's a place name. Yeah,
Okay.
that's not a good place name though.
Coming round the mountain when she comes.
Yeah, we have all this rich language here, and then we're deep in the woods of Miskatonic, and then Round the Mountain shows up. Yeah. And I'm just reminded of that bit from, Naked Gun. Everywhere I look, something reminds me of her. And wonders at the cluster of rotting gambrel roofs, bespeaking an earlier architectural period than that of the neighboring region. It is not reassuring. It is not reassuring to see, on a closer glance, that most of the houses are deserted and falling to ruin, and that the broken steepled church now harbors the one slovenly mercantile establishment of the hamlet.
Hamlet? To be or not to be?
I'm kind of wondering what that actually means. So does somebody run like a shop out of the church or something? Or is that like... Well, Lovecraft was an atheist, and he had a very low opinion of religion as a whole, so maybe that's kind of what he's saying, like the church is the mercantile enterprise there. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. Or that's what I get out of it. That was kind of a strange sentence. Okay. One dreads to trust the tenebrous tunnel of the bridge, yet there is no way to avoid it. Once across, it is hard to prevent the impression of a faint, malign odor about the village. as of the massed mold and decay of centuries. It is always a relief to get clear of the place and to follow the narrow road around the base of the hills and across the level country beyond till it rejoins the Aylesbury Pike. Afterward, one sometimes learns that one has been through Dunwich. Outsiders visit Dunwich as seldom as possible, and since a certain season of horror, all the signboards pointing towards it have been taken down. The scenery, judged by any ordinary aesthetic canon, is more than commonly beautiful. Yet there is no influx of artists or summer tourists. 2 centuries ago, when talk of witch blood, Satan worship, and strange forest presences was not laughed at.
Merry Christmas!
was not laughed at. It was the custom to Satan worship, not Santa worship. It was a custom to give reason for avoiding the locality. In our sensible age, since the Dunwich Horror of 1928 was hushed up by those who had the town's and the world's welfare at heart, people shun it without knowing exactly why. Perhaps one reason, though it cannot apply to uninformed strangers, is that the natives are now repellently decadent, having gone far along the path of retrogression so common in many New England backwaters. Oh, no banjo sound there.
I'm just laughing at the colorful language he chose to describe these people.
Yeah, they have come... Yeah. That was not the banjo I was asking for, but okay. They have come to form a race by themselves with the well-defined mental and physical stigmata of degeneracy and inbreeding. The average... That's the one I was waiting for. Okay, good. Yeah. The average of their intelligence is woefully low, whilst their annals reek of overt viciousness and half-hidden murders, incests, and deeds of almost unnameable violence and perversity. The old gentry, representing the 2 or 3 armigerous families which came from Salem in 1692, have kept somewhat above, and there's Grunty, okay, above the, wait, no, Gruntilda, that's the name of the witch, okay.
Yeah.
Above the general level of decay, though, many branches are sunk into sordid populace so deeply that only their names remain as a key to the origin they disgrace. Actually, yeah, we could do a little Dr. Google here. I wanted to... I think I understand then this one word, but could we, quickly check on it? The armigerous.
How do you spell that?
Armigerous.
Stands for a person entitled to heraldic arms.
Ah, okay. Okay. So I get. So it's kind of comes from, I guess, from, oh my God, what's the word? Jesus, what's that called? Like the shield.
Come from Jesus?
No. The the shield.
Coat of arms.
Coat of arms. Yeah, exact. Thank you. Okay, so yeah. So it probably comes from that armigerous, which is kind of, has arms. It's basically how handy, but I'm tish. Okay.
Give this man a hand.
All right. Let's yeah. Okay. Let's continue. Some of the Whateleys and bishops still send their eldest sons to Harvard and Miskatonic, though
Go over there!
though those sons seldom return to their moldering gambrel roofs under which they and their ancestors were born. No one...
Can't say I blame him.
Yeah, no one, even those who have the facts concerning the recent horror, can say just what is the matter with Dunwich. Though old legends speak of unhallowed rites and conclaves of the Indians, amidst which they call forbidden shapes of shadow out of the great rounded hills, and made wild orgiastic prayers that were answered by loud crackings and rumblings from the ground below. Merman? Is that you? In 1747, the Reverend Abijah Hoadley, I think that's... yeah, I think that's how you say it. Abijah. That's
Hoadley.
Yeah.
Abijah.
Yeah. Newly come to the Congregational Church at Dunwich Village, preached a memorable sermon to the close presence of Satan and his imps, in which...
Blah, 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 Satan, blah, 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 hell.
In which he said, there's a quote here, yeah, "It must be allowed that these blasphemies of an infernal train of demons are matters of too common knowledge to be denied. The cursed voices of Azazel and Buzrael, of Beelzebub and Belial," I almost said Beetlejuice, that's not what it says.
Amen.
Oh. "Being heard now from underground by above a score of credible witnesses now living, I myself did not more than a fortnight ago catch a very plain discourse of evil powers in the hill."
And call it he did.
"In the hill behind my house, wherein there were a rattling and rolling." Hey. Wherein were a rattling and rolling, groaning and screeching, and hissing, such as the no things of this earth could raise up, and which must needs have come from those caves that only black magic can discover, and only the devil unlock. Oh, sorry, he turned into a pirate at the end there. Wow, this is a great quote. There's some great spelling here, because first of all, okay, they spell all the devil names, correctly. But first of all, demons again with an A. We know you like that one. Then there was, oh my God, denied, DENY apostrophe D. That was great. Wait, what was another one? Evil with two L's. Yeah.
Evil.
Yeah, that's why I said it that way, because I was so overjoyed with the extra L. And then oh God, what was another one? could raised up is COU apostrophe D, and then and magic, black magic with a CK at the end. Yeah. Wow. That was a good sermon. Way to go, Abijah. Way to go, Abijah. Yeah. Mr. Hoadley disappeared soon after delivering this sermon. But the text printed in Springfield is still extant. Noises in the hills continue to be reported from year to year, and still form a puzzle.
Did you hear that?
And still
I sure did.
form a puzzle to geologists and physiographers. I guess.
Hey, I'm a geologist and I'm a physiographer, and we hear things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think physiographer is just like just a fancy word for a cartographer. That's another one of our podcasts. I forget which. It was another H.P. Lovecraft. Oh yeah, it was it was that fucking the Call of Cthulhu where I didn't know what a theosophist is, but I afterwards that was another one where I have a kind of a duh moment later when I like, oh, it comes from theology, so a theosophist is like somebody who studies religion, so yeah. Other traditions tell of foul odors near the hill, crowning circles of stone pillars, and of rushing, airy presences to be heard faintly at certain hours from stated points at the bottom of the great ravines, while still others try to explain the devil's hop yard.
Boing! I'm the devil! Boing!
A bleak, blasted hillside where no tree, shrub, or grass blade will grow. Then, too, the natives are mortally afraid of the numerous whippoorwills, which grow vocal of warm nights. It is vowed that the birds are psychopomps. Lying in wait for the souls of the dying, and that they time their eerie cries in unison to the sufferer's struggling breath. If they can, these sound a bit more intimate than just death groans, but okay. If they can catch the fleeing soul when it leaves the body, they instantly flutter away, chittering in demonic laughter. But if they fail, they subside gradually into the disappointed silence. These tales, of course, are obsolete and ridiculous. Because they come down from very old times. Dunwich is indeed ridiculously old, older by far than any of the communities within 30 miles of it. South of the village, one may still spy the cellar walls and chimney of the ancient Bishop House, which was built before 1700. Whilst the ruins of the mill at the Falls, built in 1806, form the most modern piece of architecture to be seen. Industry did not flourish here, and the 19th century factory movement proved short-lived. Oldest of all are the great rings of rough-hewn stone columns in the hilltops, but these are more generally attributed to the Indians than the settlers. Deposits of skulls and bones found within these circles and around the sizable table-like rock on Sentinel Hill sustain the popular belief that such spots were once the burial places of the Puckumtucks. I'm not sure if I...
Beg your pardon?
Puckumtucks. We can do
Bless
Dr.
you.
Google in a minute. Even though many ethnologists distressing the absurd improbability of such a theory persist in believing the remains Caucasian. I think that might be like just a Native American tribe. So that's what I'm thinking. All right, and now for part 2. It was in the township of Dunwich in a large and partly inhabited farmhouse set against the hillside 4 miles from the village and 1.5 miles from any other dwelling that Wilbur Whately was born at 5 a.m.
I'm Mr. Ed.
Why Mr. Ed?
Wilbur!
No. Wilbur Whately was born at 5 a.m. on Sunday, the 2nd of February, 1913. This date was recalled because it was Candlemas, which people in Dunwich curiously observe under another name. And
Happy birthday to you.
And because the noises in the hills had sounded and all the dogs of the countryside had barked.
Woof, woof. Hey!
Persistently throughout the night before. Less worthy of notice was the fact that the mother was one of the decadent Whateleys, a somewhat deformed, unattractive albino woman of 35.
That's not very nice.
living with an aged and half insane father, about whom the most frightful tales of wizardry had been whispered in his youth. Lavinia Whateley had no known husband, but according to the custom of the region made no attempt to disavow the child, concerning the other side of whose ancestry the country folk might, and did, speculate as widely as they chose. On the contrary, she seemed strangely proud of the dark, grotesque-looking infant, which formed such a contrast.
He may be ugly, he may be grotesque, but he's my son, and I'm proud of him.
Damn, there's an ugly-ass baby! There's an old call back to an older time, yeah, okay. Who formed such a contrast to her own sickly and pink-eyed albinism, and was heard to mutter many curious prophecies about its unusual powers and tremendous
Whoever
future.
smelt it, dealt it. Don't eat beyond midnight. Pull my finger.
Lavinia was one who would be apt to mutter such things, for she was a lone creature given to wandering amidst thunderstorms in the hills and trying to read the great the great odorous books which her father had inherited through 2 centuries of Whateleys, and which were fast falling to pieces with age and wormholes. And in this case, he means literal worms eating, like bookworms eating the holes into the books, yeah. She had never been to school, but was filled with disjointed scraps of ancient lore that old Whateley had taught her. The remote farmhouse had always been feared because of old Whateley's reputation for black magic, and the unexplained death by violence of Mrs. Whateley when Lavinia was 12 years old had not helped to make the place popular. Isolated among strange influences, Lavinia was fond of wild and grandiose daydreams and singular occupations, nor was her leisure much taken up by household cares in a home from which all standards of order and cleanliness had long since disappeared. There was a hideous screaming which echoed above even the even the hill noises and the dogs barking on the night Wilbur was born. But no known doctor or midwife presided at his coming. Neighbors knew nothing of him till a week afterward, when old Whateley drove his sleigh through the snow into Dunwich village, and discoursed incoherently to the group of loungers at Osborne's general store. There seemed to be a change in the old man, an added element of furtiveness in the clouded brain which suddenly transformed him from an object to a subject of fear. Though he was not one to be perturbed by any common family event, amidst it all he shewed some trace of the pride later noticed in his daughter, and what he said of the child's paternity was remembered by a man of his hearers years afterwards. I don't care what folks think. If Lavinia's boy looked like his pa, he wouldn't look like nothing ye expect. Ye needn't think the only folks is the folks hereabouts. Lavinia's raised some, and has seed some things. The most o' ye only tell about. I calculate her man as a good a husband as ye can find this side of Aylesbury, and if ye knowed as much about the hills as I do, ye wouldn't ask no better church wedding nor hearing. Let me tell ye something. Someday you folks'll hear a child of Levinny's a calling its father's calling its father's name on the top o' Sentinel Hill. Yeah.
Daddy, why, Daddy? Why did you me, Daddy?
I just love that the idea of evil hillbillies is like so old. The only persons who saw Wilbur during the first month of his life were old how do I say this? Zechariah Whately and the undecayed Whateleys and Earl Sawyer's common-law wife, Mammy Bishop. Mammy's visit was frankly one of curiosity, and her subsequent tales did justice to her observations. But Zachariah came to lead a pair of Alderney cows, which old Whately had bought of his son Curtis. This marked the beginning of a course of cattle buying on the part of small Wilbur's family, which ended only in 1928.
A large hamburger with a lot, please, Pilgrim.
When the Dunwich Horror came and went. Yet at no time did the ramshackle Whately's barn seem overcrowded with livestock. There came a period when the people were curious enough to steal up and count the herd that grazed precariously on the
One sheep, two sheep, three
sheep. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, where did the hell did the sheep come from? They were clearly buying cows. Yeah.
They're partly blind.
There came a period when people were curious enough to steal up and count the herd that grazed precariously on the steep hillside.
1 cow, 2 cow, 3 cow, no cows, no bull. Exactly.
Above the old farmhouse, and they could never find more than 10 or 12 anemic, bloodless-looking specimens. Evidently, some blight or distemper. Perhaps sprung from the unwholesome pasturage, or the diseased fungi and timbers of the filthy barn caused a heavy mortality among the Whately animals. Odd wounds and sores, having something of the aspect of incisions, seemed to inflict the visible cattle, and once or twice during the earlier months, certain callers fancied they could discern similar sores about the throats of the gray, unshaven old man and his slatternly, crinkly-haired albino daughter. In the spring, after Wilbur's birth, Lavinia resumed her customary rambles in the hills, bearing in her misproportioned arms the swarthy child. Public, I am getting such a vivid image of Lavinia because of these noises. Oh boy. Public interest in the Whateleys subsided after most of the country folk had seen the baby, and no one bothered to comment on the swift development which that newcomer seemed every day to exhibit. Wilbur's growth was indeed phenomenal. Oh boy. Gotta put a trigger warning, unexpected boing noises in between the reading. For within 3 months of his birth, he had attained a size and muscular power not usually found in infants. Oh God. This is just what I feared. Her head is misshapen and weird. She's skinny like a twig, at least her nuts are big, but her hair color doesn't match her beard. Damn, that's an ugly-ass baby. What was the name of that comedian who did that song? I forget.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but you remember the song, right? Yeah?
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't know that one? Oh my God, I gotta send it to you. Oh, that's great. That was a huge meme in, like, very early YouTube days. Like, we're talking, like, 2010 and thereabouts. Yeah. Okay, I lost my place. For within 3 months of his birth, he had attained a size and muscular power not usually found in infants under a full year of age. His motions...
Baby Hulk smash!
His motions and even his vocal sounds shewed a restraint and deliberateness highly peculiar in an infant, and no one was really unprepared when, at 7 months, he began to walk unassisted with falterings which another month was sufficient to remove.
Mommy, I want my milk now!
It was somewhat after this time, on Halloween, that a great blaze was seen at midnight on the top of Sentinel Hill, where the old table-like stone stands amidst its tumulus of ancient bones. Considerable talk was started when Silas Bishop, of the Undecayed Bishops, mentioned having seen the boy running sturdily up the hill ahead of his mother about an hour before the blaze was remarked. I love the fact that he keeps saying the undecayed so and so, like the these are the guys who are not haven't been fucking their siblings and what have you. The undecayed. All right. Silas was rounding up a stray heifer, but he
Come here, heifer.
But he nearly forgot his mission when he fleetingly spied the two figures in the dim light of his lantern. They darted almost.
What are they doing?
They darted almost noiselessly through the underbrush, and the astonished watcher seemed to think they were entirely unclothed. Afterward, he could not be sure about the boy, who may have had some kind of fringe belt and a pair of dark trunks or trousers on. Wilbur was never subsequently seen alive and conscious without complete and tightly buttoned attire. The disarrangement or threatened disarrangement of which always seemed to fill him with anger and alarm. His contrast with his squalid mother and grandfather in this respect was thought very notable until the horror of 1928 suggested the most valid of reasons. The next January gossips were mildly interested in the fact that Lavinia's black brat had commenced to talk, and at the age of only 11 months. His speech was somewhat remarkable, both because of its difference from the ordinary accents of the region, and because it displayed a freedom from infantile lisping, of which many children of 3 or 4 might well be proud. The boy was not talkative, yet when he spoke, he seemed to reflect some elusive element wholly unpossessed by Dunwich and its denizens. The strangeness did not reside in what he said, and even in the simple idioms he used, but seemed vaguely linked with his intonation or with the internal organs that produced the spoken sound. His facial aspect, too, was remarkable for its maturity, for though he shared his mother's and grandfather's chinlessness, his firm and precociously shaped nose, united with the expression of his large, dark, almost Latin eyes, to give him an air.
What's wrong with my nose?
To give him an air of quasi-adulthood, or a muppet, and well nigh preternatural intelligence. He was, however, exceedingly ugly, despite his appearance of brilliancy, there being something almost goatish or animalistic about his thick lips, large-pored, yellowish skin, coarse, crinkly hair, and oddly elongated ears. He was soon disliked even more decidedly than his mother and grandsire, and all conjectures about him were spiced with references to the bygone magic of old Whately, and how the hills once shook when he shrieked the dreadful name of Yog-Sothoth in the midst of a circle of stones with a great book open in his arms before him. Dogs abhorred the boy, and he was always obliged to take various defensive measures against their barking menace. And that's the end of part 2 then.
Shut up, doggy.
Now for part 3. Meanwhile, old Whately continued to buy cattle without measurably increasing the size of his herd.
I'll take that one. I'll take that one. And yeah, I'll take that one too.
He also cut timber and began to repair the unused
Timber.
parts of his house, a spacious, peaked-roofed affair whose rear end was buried entirely. What? Okay, I'm thinking there's a word. Oh, rear. Sorry, I misread it. Sorry. Whose rear end was buried entirely in the rocky hillside. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, sorry. I was not concentrating. And whose 3 least ruined ground floor rooms had always been sufficient for himself and his daughter. There must have been prodigious reserves of strength in the old man to enable him to accomplish so much hard labor, and though he still babbled dementedly at times, his carpentry seemed to shew the effects of sound calculation. It had already begun as soon as Wilbur was born, when one of the many tool sheds had been put suddenly in order, clapboarded and fitted with a stout fresh lock. Now, in restoring the abandoned upper story of the house, he was a no less thorough craftsman. His mania shewed itself only in his tight boarding up of all the windows in the reclaimed section, though many declare that it was a crazy thing to bother with the reclamation at all. Less inexplicable was his fitting up of another downstairs room for his new grandson, a room which several callers saw, though no one was ever admitted to the closely boarded up upper story. This chamber he lined with tall, firm shelving, along which he began gradually to arrange, in apparently careful order, all the rotting ancient books and parts of books which during his own day had been heaped promiscuously in odd corners of the various rooms.
I bet that room smells.
I made some use of 'em, he would say, as he tried to mend the torn black letter page with paste prepared on the rusty kitchen stove. But the boy's fitting to make a better use of 'em. He'd orter have 'em as well sawed as he kin, for they're going to be all of his learning. When Wilbur was a year and 7 months old in September of 1914, his size and accomplishment...
He graduated.
Well, yeah, it does look that way, doesn't it? And accomplishments were almost alarming. He had grown as large as a child of 4, and was a fluent and incredibly intelligent talker. He ran freely about the fields and hills, and accompanied his mother on all her wanderings. At home, he would pore diligently over the queer pictures and charts in his grandfather's books, while old Whately would instruct and catechize him through long, hushed afternoons. That's an interesting way to say it. But this time, the restoration of the house was finished, and those who watched it wondered why one of the upper windows had been made into a solid plank door. It was a window in the rear of the east gable end, close against the hill, and no one could imagine why a cleated wooden runway was built up to it from the ground. About the period of his work's completion, people noticed that the old tool house, tightly locked and windowlessly clapboarded since Wilbur's birth. I understood that reference. Had been abandoned again. The door swung listlessly open, and when Earl Sawyer once stepped within after a cattle-selling call on old Whately, he was quite discomposed by the singular odor he encountered.
Oh! That smells!
Such a stench, he averred, as he had never before smelt in all his life, except near the Indian circles on the hills, and which could not come from anything sane or as of this earth. But then the homes and sheds of Dunwich folks had never been remarkably olfactory. Sorry, had never been remarkable for olfactory immaculateness. Wow.
Burn.
Wow, that is a really, really funny way of saying that they were known for smelling bad, or they were known for not smelling good. Olfactory immaculateness. That sounds like such goddamn, like, corporate, jargon garbage. Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. The following months were void of visible events, save that everyone swore to slow but steady increase in the mysterious hill noises.
Ah!
On May Eve of 1915, there were tremors, which even the Aylesbury people felt, whilst the following Halloween produced an underground rumbling, queerly synchronized with the bursts of flame. Them witch Whately's doings. Them witch Whately's doings from the summit of Sentinel Hill. Wilbur was growing up uncannily, so that he looked like a boy of 10 as he entered his 4th year. He read avidly by himself now, but talked much less than formerly. A settled taciturnity was absorbing him, and for the first time people began to speak specifically of the dawning look of evil in his goatish face. He would sometimes mutter an unfamiliar jargon and chant in the bizarre rhythms which chilled the listeners with a sense of unexplainable terror.
Just beat it, yeah, beat it.
The aversion displayed towards him by dogs had now become a matter of wide remark, and he was obliged to carry a pistol in order to traverse the countryside in safety. His occasional use of the weapon did not enhance his popularity amongst the owners of canine guardians. That's again really.
Hello, I am the canine guardian, here to save the day.
Yeah. The owners of canine guardians, as in dog owners. Just really funny word choices here. The few callers of the house would often find Lavinia alone on the ground floor, while odd cries and footsteps resounded in the boarded-up second story. She would never tell what her father and the boy were doing up there.
I ain't talking.
Though once she turned pale and displayed an abnormal degree of fear when a Chaco's fish peddler tried the locked door leading to the stairway.
Hey, wanna buy some fish?
That peddler told the store loungers at Dunwich Village that he thought he heard a horse stamping on the floor above.
Wilbur!
The loungers reflected, thinking that the door and runway of the cattle that so swiftly disappeared. Then they shuddered as they recalled tales of old Whately's youth, and of the strange things that are called out of the earth when a bullock of sacrifice at the proper time to certain heathen gods. It had for some time been noticed that dogs had begun to hate and fear the whole Whately place as violently as they hated and feared young Wilbur personally. Okay. A bollock. Okay, I know when people say bollocks, that are called out of the earth when a bollock is sacrificed at the proper time. Is there another?
Ouch.
Yeah, but is there another term? Does bollock mean something else besides testicles?
Do you really want me to Google that?
Yes, I do really want you to Google bollocks for me. So please, could you kindly, or just bollock singular?
Reprimand someone severely.
Reprimand.
Sorry. Yeah, now I'm dyslexic. Yeah, reprimand someone severely. To speak angrily to someone because they have done something wrong.
Okay, but that's the verb. Is there a noun that's also a bollock?
To describe something as nonsense.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's bollocks, yeah. But, is there anything else, like an older meaning?
No, I can't find anything.
Interesting. So I wonder what the bollock is that's being sacrificed. I hope they are not sacrificing testicles.
No. Oh.
That would be painful.
Okay. Darn it, Wilbur, why did you only have to take one, and why did it have to be my good one?
In 1917, the war came. And Squire Sawyer Whately, a chairman of the local draft board, had hard work finding a quota of young Dunwich men fit even to be sent to a development camp. The government, alarmed at such signs of wholesome regional decadence, wholesale regional decadence. I read that badly. Okay. Sent several officers and medical experts.
That sounds like a really bad shop. Come on down. We got decadence on wholesale. Get them now. 50% off. 60% off.
Yeah, but I said
75% off.
But I said wholesome regional decadence, which doesn't sound. That's a bit incongruous. Okay, where are we? Yeah, they send several officers and medical experts to investigate. Conducting a survey which New England newspaper readers may still recall. It was the publicity attending this investigation which set reporters on the track of the Whateleys and caused the Boston Globe and Arkham Advertiser to print flamboyant Sunday stories of young Wilbur's precociousness, old Whately's black magic, and the shelves of strange books, the sealed second story of the ancient farmhouse, and the weirdness of the whole region and its hill noises.
Uh-huh.
It feels like he kind of gave up at the end of the sentence, just like, the weird noises, I don't know why I suddenly talk like Tommy Wiseau, okay? But also, Boston Globe, that's a real magazine, actually, yeah. Arkham Advertiser is not. I assume it's not, okay. Wilbur was 4.5 then, and looked like a lad of 15. His lips and cheeks were fuzzy, with a coarse dark down, and his voice had begun to break. Earl Sawyer went out to the Whately place with both sets of reporters and cameramen and called their attention to the queer stench which now seemed to trickle down from the sealed upper spaces. It was, he said, exactly like a smell he had found in the tool shed abandoned when the house was finally repaired, and like the faint odors which he sometimes thought he caught near the stone circles of the mountains. Dunwich folk read the stories when they appeared and grinned over the obvious mistakes. They wondered too why the writers made so much of the fact that old Whately always paid for his cattle in gold pieces of extremely ancient date. The Whateleys had received their visitors with ill-concealed distaste, though they did not dare court further publicity by a violent resistance or refusal to talk. And that was the end of part 3. And, alright, so let's continue then on to part 4. For a decade, the annals of the Whateleys sink indistinguishably into the general life of a more morbid community used to their queer ways and hardened to their May Eve and All Hallows orgies. Oh boy, I hope he doesn't mean that literally. Okay, twice a year.
You can find it. No.
Twice a year they would light fires on the top of Sentinel Hill, at which times the mountain rumblings would recur with greater and greater violence. While at all seasons there were strange and pretentious doings at the lonely farmhouse.
I bet you there was.
In the course of time, callers professed to fierce sounds in the sealed upper story, even when all the family were downstairs, and they wondered how swiftly and how lingeringly a cow or bullock was usually sacrificed. I'm starting to think, is bullock, is it just a long term for bull? As in,
That's what I'm thinking now.
yeah, I'm starting to think that too. There was talk of a complaint to the Society of the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, but nothing ever came of it, since Dunwich folk are never anxious to call the outside world's attention to themselves. About 1923, when Wilbur was a boy of 10 whose mind, voice, stature, and bearded face gave all the impression of maturity, a second great siege of carpentry went on at the old house. It was all inside the it was all inside the sealed upper part, and from bits of discarded lumber people concluded that the youth and his grandfather had knocked out all the partitions and even removed the attic floor, leaving only one vast open void between the ground story and the peaked roof. They had torn down the great central chimney too, and fitted the rusty range with a flimsy outside tin stovepipe. In the spring after this event, the old Whately noticed the growing number of whippoorwills that would come out of Cold Spring Glen to chirp under the window at night. He seemed to regard the circumstance as one of great significance, and told the loungers at Osborne's that he thought his time had almost come. "They whistle just in tune with my breathing now," he said, "and I guess they're getting ready to catch me soul. They know it's going out, and don't calculate to miss it. You'll know, boys, arter I'm gone, whether they get me or not. If they do, they'll keep up a singing and laughing till break of day. If they don't, they'll kinder quiet down like. I expect them and the soul they hunts for have some pretty tough tussles sometime." On Lammas night, 1924, Dr. Houghton of Aylesbury was hastily summoned by Wilbur Whately, who had lashed his one remaining horse through the darkness and telephoned from Osborne's in the village.
John!
He found old Whately in a very grave state, with a cardiac action and stertorous breathing that told of an end not far off. There's one of my favorite words, stertorous. It was also in one of our H.P. Lovecraft, one of our podcasts. Yeah, it was in the M. Valdemar story. Yeah, the shapeless albino daughter and the oddly bearded grandson stood by the bedside, whilst from the vacant abyss overhead there came the disquieting suggestion of rhythmical surging or lapping as of the waves. As of the waves on some level beach. The doctor, though, was chiefly disturbed by the chattering night birds outside.
Sorry, I just got a bad image of like the dying grandpa having strippers available at his death.
No, yeah, they were, they were coming from the upper portion again. The doctor, though, was chiefly, I read that part already, seemingly limitless legion of whippoorwills that cried their endless message in repetition, timed diabolically to the wheezing gasps of the dying man. It was uncanny and unnatural. Too much, though, too much, thought Dr. Houghton, like the whole of the region he had entered so reluctantly in response to the urgent call. Toward 1 o'clock, old Whately gained consciousness and interrupted his wheezing to choke out a few words to his grandson. More space, Willie. More space soon. You grow.
That's what she said.
You grows and that grows faster. It'll be ready to serve you soon, boy. Open up the gates to York so taut, with the long chant, that you'll find on page 751 of the complete edition, and then put a match to the prison. Fire both art. Can't burnt it now how. He was obviously quite mad. After a pause during which the flock of whippoorwills outside adjusted their cries to the altered tempo while some indications of the strange hill noises came from afar off, he added another sentence or two. Feed it regular, Willie, and mind the quantity, but don't let it grow too fast for the place. For if it busts quarters or gets out afore ye opens to Yog Sottot, it's all over and no use. Only them from beyond can make it multiply and work. Only them, the old ones, as ones to come back. Sorry, I keep kind of
the old ones.
Yeah, I keep drifting between my hillbilly voice and my pirate voice there.
I could tell.
But speech gave no place to gasps again, and Lavinia screamed at the way the whippoorwills followed the change. It was the same for more than an hour when the final throaty rattle came.
Oh.
Thank you. Dr. Houghton drew shrunken lids over the glazing gray eyes of as the tumult of birds faded imperceptibly to silence. Lavinia sobbed, but Wilbur only chuckled, whilst the hill noises rumbled faintly. They didn't get him, he muttered in his heavy bass... Oh, sorry.
They didn't get him.
He muttered in his heavy bass voice. Wilbur was by this time a scholar of really tremendous erudition in his one-sided way, and was quietly known by correspondents to many librarians in distant places where rare and forbidden books of old days are kept. He was more and more hated and dreaded around Dunwich because of certain youthful disappearances which suspicion laid vaguely at his door, but was always able to silence inquiry through fear or through use of that fund of old-time gold which still, as in his grandfather's time, went forth regularly and increasingly for cattle buying. He was now tremendously mature of aspect, and his height, having reached the normal adult limit, seemed inclined to wax beyond that figure. In 1925, when a scholarly correspondent from Miskatonic University called upon him one day and departed pale and puzzled, he was fully 6 3/4 feet tall. Through all the years Wilbur had treated his half-deformed albino mother with growing contempt, finally forbidding her to go to the hills with him on the May Eve and Hallow Mass.
I'm sorry, Mother. It's not working out. You can't come with me anymore. I'm a fully grown man. I can do things on my own now.
And in 1926, the poor creature complained to Mammy Bishop of being afraid of him. "There's more about him as I knows than I can tell ye, Mammy," she said. "And nowadays there's more nor..." I sound more like an old man than a woman. "And nowadays there's more nor what I know myself. I vow for God, I don't know what he wants nor what he's a-trying to do." That Halloween, the hill noises sounded louder than ever, and fire burned on Sentinel Hill as usual. But people paid more attention to the rhythmical screaming of vast flocks of unnaturally belated whippoorwills which seemed to be assembled near the unlighted Whately farmhouse. After midnight their shrill notes burst into a kind of pandemonic cachinnation.
I don't even think I got a sound effect for that.
Which filled all the countryside, and not until dawn did they finally quiet down. Then they vanished, hurrying southward, where they were fully a month overdue. What this meant, no one could quite be certain till later. None of the country folks seemed to have died, but poor Lavinia Whately, the twisted albino, was never seen again.
Dun, dun, dun.
In the summer of 1927, Wilbur repaired 2 sheds in the farmyard and began moving his books and effects out of them. Yes. Soon afterward, Earl Sawyer told the loungers at Osborne's that some carpentry was going on in the Whately farmhouse. Wilbur was closing all the doors and the windows on the ground floor and seemed to be taking out partitions as he and his grandfather had done upstairs 4 years before. He was living in one of the sheds, and Sawyer thought he seemed unusually worried and tremulous. People generally suspected him of knowing something about his mother's disappearance, and very few ever approached his neighborhood now. His height had increased to more than 7 feet, and showed no signs of ceasing its development.
And he played for the Chicago Bulls for whatever reason.
Yeah. All right, so we're almost done with today's podcast. We still have one more part to go before we call it quits for today, and we'll continue another time. So let's now get on with part 5 of the Dunwich Horror. The following winter brought an event no less strange than Wilbur's first trip outside the Dunwich region. Correspondence with the Widener Library at Harvard, the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris, the British Museum, the University of Buenos Aires, and the Library of Miskatonic University of Arkham had failed to get him the loan of a book he desperately wanted.
Wow, Wilbur likes to get around, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he didn't go anywhere. He was corresponding, so he was sending letters to all these places.
Oh, okay.
So at length he set out in person, shabby, dirty, bearded, and uncouth of dialect, to consult the copy at Miskatonic, which was the nearest to him geographically. Almost 8 feet tall and carrying a cheap new valise from Osborne's General.
You know, he could have just easily just said that was the one closest to him. Didn't he really need that geographically?
Yes, almost 8 feet tall and carrying a cheap new valise from Osborne's General Store. This dark and goatish gargoyle appeared one day in Arkham in quest of the dreaded volume kept under lock and key at the college library.
Excuse me, sir. Do you have the Marilyn Monroe issue of Playboy in stock?
The hideous Necronomicon of the Mad Arab.
Oh.
Abdul al-Hazred in Olaus Wormius's Latin version as printed in Spain in the 17th century. He had never seen a city before, but had no thought save to find his way to the university grounds, where indeed he passed heedlessly by the great white-fanged watchdog that barked with unnatural fury and enmity.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I forgot to mention that the dog was high at the time. You sounded more like Snoop Dogg. I'm not gonna lie. Bow wow wow, yippee yo, yippee yay. And tugged frantically at its stout chain. Wilbur had with him the priceless but imperfect copy of Dr. Dee's English version, which his grandfather had bequeathed him, and upon receiving access to the Latin copy, he at once began to collate the 2 texts with the aim of discovering a certain passage which would have come on the 751st page of his own defective volume. This much he could not civilly refrain from telling the librarian, the same erudite Henry Armitage, A.M. Miskatonic, Ph.D., Princeton, Lit. D. John Hopkins. Okay, I'm gonna need Dr. Google a little bit because I don't know what some of these. I mean,
Yep.
I know what Ph.D. means, but A.M. A.M. What does that mean? Is that some kind of that's some kind of degree, isn't it?
Before noon. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
A person who appeals against the decision of a court.
So
I don't think that's the one we're
yeah,
after.
that's the
isn't it?
legal term. Okay, can you check this other one for
Okay.
me? This has to be like but isn't John Hopkins like a medical hospital? It's like
I was thinking, isn't there John Hopkins disease?
yeah. So lit D, capital L, then small I T T dot, then capital D dot. What does that mean?
Stands for Doctor of Letters.
Doctor of Letters. Okay, interesting. Yeah. Well, I was thinking like something like that. And PhD, that makes I know what that is.
Yeah, because it can also, because you said LITT.D, right?
Yeah.
It can also be spelt the other way around, gone by this article.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So the same erudite Henry Armitage, who had once called at the farm and who now politely plied him with questions. That's a funny way of saying politely plied him with questions. He was looking, he had to admit, for a kind of formula or incantation containing the frightful name Yog-Sothoth, and it puzzled him to find discrepancies, duplications, and ambiguities which made the matter of determination far from easy. As he copied the formula he finally chose, Dr. Armitage looked involuntarily over his shoulder at the open pages and the left hand one of which, in the Latin version, contained such monstrous threats to the peace and sanity of the world. Nor is it to be thought, ran the text as Armitage mentally translated, that man is either the oldest or the last of Earth's masters, or that the common bulk of life and substance walks alone. The old ones were, the old ones are, and the old ones shall be. Not in the spaces we know, but between them. They walk serene and primal, undimensioned, and to us unseen. Yog-Sothoth knows the gate. Yog-Sothoth is the gate. Yog-Sothoth is the key and guardian of the gate. Past, present. Yes, sorry.
I'm just getting Ghostbusters flashbacks now. I am the key master. Are you the?
Well,
Are you the gatekeeper?
well, yeah. Those influences came from somewhere. Past, present, and past, present, future, all are one in Yog-Sothoth. He knows where the old
Kinky.
ones. He knows where the old ones broke through of old and where they shall break through again. He knows where they have trod Earth's fields, where they still tread them, and why no one can behold them as they tread. By their smell can men sometimes know them near, but of their semblance can no man know, saving only in the features of those they have begotten on mankind. And of those are there many sorts, differing in likeness from man's truest eidolon to that shape without sight or substance which is them. They walk unseen and foul in lonely places where the words have been spoken and the rites howled through at their seasons. The wind gibbers with their voices, and the earth mutters with their consciousness. They bend the forest and crush the city, yet may not forest or city behold the hand that smites. Kadath in the cold waste hath known them, and what man knows Kadath? The ice desert of the south and the shrunken isles of the ocean hold stones whereon their seal is engraven. But who hath seen the deep frozen city, or the sealed tower long garlanded, sorry, that's difficult to say, with seaweed and barnacles?
Yeah, man.
Great Cthulhu is their cousin, yet can he spy them only dimly. Ia Shub-Niggurath, as a foulness shall ye know them, Their hand is at your throats, yet ye see them not, and their habitation is even one with your guarded threshold. Yog-Sothoth is the key to the gate, whereby the spheres meet. Man rules now where they ruled once. They shall soon rule where man rules now. After summer is winter, and after winter summer. They wait patient and potent, for there shall reign, for here shall they reign again. Dr. Armitage, associating what he was reading with what he had heard from Dunwich and its brooding presences, and of Wilbur Whately and his dim, hideous aura that stenched from a dubious birth to a cloud of probable matricide, felt a wave of fright as tangible as a drought on the tomb's cold clamminess. Of the tomb's cold clamminess, sorry. The bent, goatish giant before him seemed like the spawn of another planet or dimension, like something only partly of mankind, and is linked to black gulfs of essence and entity that stretch like titan phantasms beyond all spheres of force and matter, space and time. Presently, Wilbur raised his head and began speaking in that strange resonant fashion which hinted at sound-producing organs unlike the run of mankind's.
Wrong kind of organ, sorry.
Yeah,
Mr. Armitage,
he said.
I calculate I've got to take the book home. They's things in it I've got to try under certain conditions that I can't get here. It'd be mortal sin to let a red tape rule hold me up. Let me take it along, sir, and I'll swore they won't nobody know the difference. I don't need to tell ye, I'll take good care of it. It wan't me that put this D copy in the shape it is.
He stopped as he saw firm denial on the librarian's face, and his own goatish features grew crafty. Armitage, Armitage, have ready to tell him he might make a copy of what parts he needed, thought suddenly of the possible consequences and checked himself. There was too much responsibility in giving such a being the key to such blasphemous outer spheres. Whately saw how things stood, and tried to answer lightly.
Well, all right. If ye feel that way about it, maybe Harvard won't be so fussy as ye be.
And without saying more, he rose and strode out of the building, stooping at each doorway.
Boom, 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 boom.
Armitage heard the savage yelping of the great watchdog and studied Whately's gorilla-like lope as he crossed the bit of campus visibly from the window. He thought of the wild tales he had heard and recalled the old Sunday stories in the Advertiser. These things and the lore he had picked up from Dunwich rustics and the villagers during his one visit there. Unseen things, not of earth, or at least not of tri-dimensional earth, rushed footed and horrible through New England's glens and brooded obscenely on the mountain tops.
Oh!
Of this he had long felt certain. Now he seemed to sense the close presence of some terrible part of the intruding horror, and to glimpse a hellish advance in the black dominion of the ancient and once passive nightmare. He locked away the Necronomicon with a shudder of disgust, but the room still reeked with an unholy and unidentifiable stench. As foulness shall ye be known.
Eating too much Taco Bell can do that to a man.
As a foulness shall ye be know them, he quoted. Yes, the odor was the same as that which had sickened him at the Whately farmhouse less than 3 years before. He thought of Wilbur goatish and ominous, once again, and laughed mockingly at the village rumors of his parentage. Inbreeding, Armitage muttered, half aloud to himself. Great God, what simpletons! Show them Arthur Machen's great God pan, and they'll think it a common Dunwich scandal. But what cursed shapeless influence on or of his three-dimensional earth was Wilbur Whately's father, born on Candlemas, 9 months after May Eve of 1912, when the talk about the queer earth noises reached clear to Arkham. What walked on the mountains that May night? What rude horror fastened itself on the world in half-human flesh and blood? During the ensuing weeks, Dr. Armitage set about to collect all possible data on Wilbur Whately and the formless presences around Dunwich. He got in communication with Dr. Howden of Aylesbury, who had attended old Whately in his last illness, and found much to ponder over in the grandfather's last words as quoted by the physician. A visit to Dunwich village failed to bring out much that was new, but a close survey of the Necronomicon in those parts which Wilbur had sought so avidly seemed to supply new and terrible clues to the nature, methods, and desires of the strange evil so vaguely threatening his planet. Talks with several students of archaic lore in Boston and letters to many others elsewhere gave him growing amazement, which passed slowly through varied degrees of alarm to a state of really acute spiritual fear. As the summer drew on, he felt dimly that something ought to be done about the lurking terrors of the upper Miskatonic Valley and about the monstrous beings known to the human world as Wilbur Whately. And that's where we will conclude this time on the Unnamed Horror. Okay, but I think we can spare a few thoughts about how we feel about the story thus far. So, Kaiser, how do you feel about the story so far?
Pretty interesting. A lot of build-up going on still.
Yeah.
I like how the Necronomicon just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Normally does.
Yeah, it's like we have been teasing this, like, forbidden knowledge and everything, and you can tell that this is already kind of like a pretty late-ish story from Lovecraft, that he's making all these references to his like previous works. And I do love what you said, that you were surprised. Maybe we weren't recording at that moment, but you were surprised that the whole concept of evil hillbillies, like just how old it is. And,
yeah.
And that's what I love about reading this story. It's like, just the hillbilly talk. And actually, like, Wilbur Whately, well, that's still coming up, but there's a certain character from a certain horror video game that is very obviously based on him. So that's something also worthy of mention. And also, there is a movie version of this. I have not seen it, but I have heard that it's actually like really good. But it bangs a little harder, I think, on the final chapters. What happens in those? We haven't really gotten to the big impressive parts. Those are coming up in parts 6 through 10. But yeah, the thing that I do kind of get from this is there is actually this weird, I said wholesome accidentally during that one part, but there is kind of like this wholesome thing with Lavinia, because, again, Lovecraft didn't have that many like female protagonists or characters in his stories. So it is kind of fun seeing that, yeah, as well. Yeah, any other thoughts?
No, I guess this isn't really a thought, but I'm looking forward to hearing how the second half of this story goes.
Yeah, that's the part that I kind of remember more, but it is that whole build-up part is also quite interesting. Okay, but we have been going on for quite a while now. This is going to be a bit of a longer podcast, so I hope people will tune back in when we do. Oh yeah, that's the thing that I remembered when we got that little bit of like Necronomicon gibberish there at the end. I didn't even do our like classic opening like the Ia Cthulhu Fatagan to you. So it totally slipped my mind. But it's been a while since we've done a podcast, so that's that's partly why. Okay, but thank you for joining us for this Unnamed Horror, and remember to check back in for the second half of the Dunwich Horror. You got any last words for the audience, Kaiser?
Woo!
Good words.
You're returning back in again, why won't ya? Yes, sirree.
Yes.
Yahoo!
And an Ia Cthulhu Fatagan to all of you. One and all.